with the excavation we set up here, I wanted the kids to have the same thing, like what's there, and I wanted them just to be completely engaged and enthralled with what was under that earth. And they are so funny because they'll ask me things like, do you know what's down there? And are these bodies real? And are all these artifacts real? And like they really are quite convinced that it really is a real thing. And it's just hilarious. So I think we've done quite well in creating an authentic experience. This excavation started in 2012, and I have run 2 other excavations at another school where we had some 1800s remains, but when I got to Cromer I just decided that we could do the same thing here, and I could actually have a lot more fun with it by putting in my own pit. So from there we decided that we would cut in a 4 by 4 metre pit, and we created the skeletons to go in it because every child likes to dig skeletons basically. So the pit was going to be divided into 4 quarters, so I needed 4 skeletons because you couldn't have 1 quarter that didn't have a skeleton in it, otherwise they'd feel upset. So I had some Year 10 students help me create the skeletons. Basically 1 packet of white clay creates 1 human full-size skeleton. So it took us about 2 weeks to create the skeletons, and then what I had to do was, because we replicate real life digs, then you have to choose each 2 years. I swap the pit around, but you choose your scenario and you make the associated objects to put into the pit. So the first excavation that we had was the Minoan temple human sacrifice. Temple fell down during an earthquake. They were trying to stop the earthquake by sacrificing a victim, and this one is a real site in Crete around the 1600 BC. During the earthquake, the whole temple fell down, so not only the sacrifice victim died, then everybody else died as well. So there were actually 3 sacrificers and 1 sacrificee, and that made our first excavation. That one was pretty fun, and we actually got a lot of publicity out of that one too. We ended up in the Sydney Morning Herald on a Sunday, so around 2 million views around New South Wales for that dig. I think we're on about page 8. So the kids were really excited about that. It was the inaugural dig, and we actually reached a huge audience on that one. So we, in our first year, we actually made it to the front page of the History Teachers magazine also. This time, our second dig, our first one was the Minoans. This time we decided to do piracy because when I teach piracy to Year 10, we look at a site of Port Royal, which is in modern-day Jamaica, which again sank during an earthquake. But it was an interesting one because it was where pirates went to hang out when they were not pirating. So it was a town where they had a lot of fun. There were lots of bars and lots of basically naughty business that went on, and we all know that pirates live for a good time. They didn't live for a long time. But we used it to support our classroom teaching and to create some quality learning experiences, engaging our students to learn more deeply. I had my Year 10s help me design the pit based on the site of Port Royal after we looked at the archaeology there. And then we brought the Year 7s out to excavate it so they can learn about how we can learn about history by reading the remains from the past. But every kid loves a pirate, so that one was a big hit.
So far we've found like tiles and a body, and we've also found a few artifacts like jugs and mugs.
And then the boys were
we're actually cleaning around so we can get the levels correct so they're all the same. And yeah, we've just found a few artifacts around here.
Yeah, you just gotta be gentle with these things because these are thousands of years old and they could be really fragile.
We've had quite a bit of interest in the dig because I think we're the only school in Australia that really presents such an authentic experience and so much detail. So we've had schools come in to visit. We've had, when we are excavating, we've had various teachers come across and observe as we've been doing it. We've had some interest from other high schools. Maybe in the future they might come in and even excavate the pit. We've had the primary schools. I think we've had about, 9 or 10 primary schools visit to date. On top of that, we've set up a Facebook site that's called Archaeology in Schools. From that, we've had lots of views and comments from right around the world, really. We've had various people just tap in and say they like this and ask us questions about that. We also ran a training day for teachers on how to set up their own dig, so they can look at it online. They can come in and visit us while we're doing it. Occasionally we also run these training days. On top of that, we also have a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is called Chroma Big Dig, and on that channel we've got a number of videos on there just showing how we made the bones, showing about the excavation in process, looking at the skills of archaeology that we teach while we are out there in the pit. So it's not just about digging something up and finding it, it's using correct excavation methods, it's using correct methods of recording the material, and then it's also about learning how to interpret the material in an accurate manner. I guess we just do it from a really practical sense. Like, one, find an area that's appropriate in your school grounds. I like to choose an area that's out of the way, so that you haven't got kids that are traipsing through it. You see we've tucked ours around the back of a building that has very limited access. Also, obviously, you really need to check your school plans, because you don't want to go bringing in an excavator and it digs up a power line or a plumbing line or something like that. We were lucky that the soil out the back of our school is sand, because we are quite close to the beach area. Some schools might have hard rock clay, which wouldn't be great. So excavating I think a 4 by 4 metre pit is good for a 2-day dig. If you put your remains down probably a little bit less than a metre, maybe about 75 centimetres, then if you divide the pit into 4, it takes a single class about 2.5 hours to dig out a quarter of it. So that way you can get through the dig in 2 days. If I had hard rock clay, I would just simply get an excavator in, take that clay out, and then I would just put in sand. And sand is really easy to excavate. It's clean. You haven't got all the grit and everything that's getting in. It's easy to pull out. It's easy to put back in. If you lose a little bit of sand, each time you dig, your pit goes down a little bit. You don't get it all back in. But just to top it up, it's pretty easy as well. It's fairly inexpensive. I guess I really hope that they gain that passion for history, to have an understanding of archaeology, to have an understanding of, how we gain our knowledge about history, and how it's really quite a fluid thing, because sometimes, history books are written and then a new piece of evidence will come up that proves something it's wrong. So then the history book has to be rewritten. And that happens all the time. And I guess that's the thing about history. It's really just a theory, and it's a theory based on the available evidence. And that evidence changes a lot, and it's archaeology that contributes to a lot of that. So, there's a lot of things that I want them to get out of it. One is to have a lot of fun and to enjoy it, but then to really switch them on to understanding where we get our information from. I think one of the big successes of the excavation is the fact that it is so student-driven. I can't take out all that soil on my own. I can't carry all the equipment out there. I can't manage all those kids doing all those 3 different jobs at the same time. So it's a great bonding experience between yourself and your students, and the success is really driven by the fact that the students so enthusiastically embrace it. They've been really responsible. If I tell them they've got to be here an hour before school, they're here and they're helping me set up tents and bring tables out and carry shovels. And a lot of it it's quite hard work, but those kids have never let me down. And the success is really, it's them that do it. And I guess that's one of the things I really enjoy about it. It's fantastic.